I've clicked onto the global tropical area for March the 28th, 2024. As is always the case in these videos, they'll not expect your mind alone, and in making decisions ahead of any tropical cyclones, look to the local office, local emergency management, and local tropical cyclone warning center. We have one storm active today still, that is Tropical Cyclone Gamane. Sitting here over northern Madagascar, the system made landfall yesterday morning as a strong cyclone and has since weakened considerably with the interaction with the high topography of Madagascar. And the storm right now is really not moving all too fast, though it really wasn't moving too fast to begin with. But now the system is unfortunately over land, and we are seeing a very significant rainfall event take place here with the high topography in this region, and unfortunately we may be looking at a lot of flooding issues and maybe some mudslides as well in northern Madagascar, so hope everyone is safe on the island. But the storm is not done yet. We're still looking at a secondary phase of the storm going towards Mauritius and La Reunion. Fortunately, like I talked about last night, how things were trending for Mauritius and La Reunion, they've continued to trend pretty good, and we're looking at likely a weak tropical storm, maybe tropical depression, coming through those islands as we get through the latter half of this week and into this weekend. But good news here that we're not looking at a strong storm coming towards those islands like initial predictions had from model guidance. Let's go ahead and get right into it. Right now, the storm is being steered by an area of high pressure south of Madagascar, and I'll go back to the beginning of this run so you can see this. You can see the big area of high pressure draped south of Madagascar. And this is what we talked about yesterday was one of the competing factors for the storm in terms of steering. We had, ever since the storm's genesis, this ridge trying to push it towards the Mozambique Channel, but aloft we had an upper trough trying to push it towards Mauritius and La Reunion. The storm has had a lot of land interaction, as you can tell on satellite imagery, and I talked about this a bit yesterday, how when a storm weakens, its vortex height throughout the atmosphere gets shorter. So when you have a strong storm, it extends to a great height in the atmosphere. But when the storms weaken, they get shorter within the atmosphere. And because of that flow at the upper part of the atmosphere becomes less important for the storm's steering motion than low-level features in a storm case like this. And because we've seen a lot of weakening today take place with the storm being over land, the upper trough steering has become much less important right now, and this ridge has become much more important. And this is likely what's going to keep it onshore for the next day, day and a half, maybe even still 2 days. Over Madagascar. This is still going to be a long and drawn-out event, like I talked about yesterday, and unfortunately, again, tons of rainfall likely falling over here. I haven't seen any recordings of rainfall totals so far in Madagascar, but I'm sure they're going to be high when everything's said and done. But this pattern is changing, and this will be changing as we get towards the weekend time frame. We're going to be having a trough digging in south of Madagascar. So you can see here's the area of high pressure, and you can see some increased yellow here indicating a little bit more spin in the atmosphere. And down south of here is a incoming area of low pressure, or a trough, digging in south of Africa. And you'll see this here on the European. The trough digs in, and we start to get a western set of this ridge that was once south of the storm. So now it's turning more east of the storm. Alongside that, we're also getting an area of high pressure develop north of the storm. This ridge here and this trough is going to work together to get the system finally out of Madagascar. It's going to work to pull the system towards Mauritius and La Reunion. Now, conditions are forecast to be fairly favorable for the system to have an opportunity to either redevelop or re-intensify, likely in the tropical storm intensity. Models are generally in agreement that the storm will likely become a tropical storm again. And you can see the environment here on the European. Before this trough comes in that's moving over Madagascar, there might be a pocket of lower wind shear over the system as it comes offshore. And that's its opportunity to strengthen. The good news here for Mauritius and La Reunion is now this is a weak tropical storm, maybe not even a tropical cyclone coming offshore, compared to what models were showing a couple days ago, where the storm would have came just offshore of Madagascar, missing the entire landmass and staying strong and that was your threat of a significant cyclone coming through. But because we have a lot more land interaction, the storm has weakened quite considerably, and now this environment is not really favorable for intensification into, say, a big significant cyclone. It never really truly was. The GFS was really the only one keeping it very strong, but the potential was there if the storm missed Madagascar for it to stay strong as it came southeast. But the story has been the same pretty much, that wind shear is going to be increasing as the storm comes southeast because of this trough moving over Madagascar. And you'll see this happen on the European as I go in time. As the storm comes southeast, we start to get a lot more blues covering and coming right into that area of low pressure, the red L there on the map. And that is indicative of increased vertical wind shear that is going to likely disrupt the storm quite significantly. Now, you may ask, if the storm's tracking southeast, is this shear going to be negated any as it is in the flow of the steering of the storm, where it's tracking? And it is in the same direction. However, the area of high pressure that is currently keeping it over Madagascar is going to come in once again to help us in this case. You can see that as the trough digs in, and by this time the storm's moving southeast, here's the area of high pressure east of the storm now, where it was south. Now this has been imparting a northerly flow upon the system, so it's trying to push it towards the south, parallel to the coast of Madagascar. This is opposite, or not opposite, but this is completely different to what the flow aloft is. Remember, I showed you it's trying to track it towards the south and east. And this creates actually quite a significant shear. In fact, the European is depicting a very high shear by the time the storm gets close to the islands, and this will likely cause the storm to weaken from whatever intensity it attains just after Madagascar. And this is now looking like either a weak tropical storm or even a tropical depression coming through the islands. Now, one thing that's important to note is the storm will still likely have some impacts with it. You can see that the vorticity signature here, the spin, is still pretty strong here. We've got some darker colors here in the center, and this will likely be accompanied by deep convection, or lots of thunderstorms. And as the shear is pushing all the thunderstorms towards the south and east, it would be pushing it right onto the islands of Mauritius and La Reunion, and there could be some increased potential of rainfall over the islands. And you can see this here in the GFS ensemble map with that potential here of increased rainfall across these two islands. And you can see the general consensus from the GFS ensemble, which is about 31 members, is saying 50 to 100 millimeters, maybe a little bit higher in localized spots. Now, it's important to note that this is a mean between 31 members, and there may be locally higher totals, maybe increased above 150 millimeters in islands like, or places like Mauritius and La Reunion, especially with maybe some higher terrain, and that could lead to some localized flooding issues. Now, if the storm's going to come through the islands, that is a little bit of a tough question right now. Like I talked about, this ridge is trying to push it south, so this is actually slowing the storm down and allowing this trough to progress. This trough down here is not going to hang back too long over this region, and you can already see another area of high pressure developing here over southern Africa, moving south of Madagascar in the wake of this trough. And if the storm is too slow, this ridge will likely be able to catch it and may just stop it before it gets to Mauritius and La Reunion, and may just kick it back northwest towards Madagascar. Now, the good news is here, right now it does not look like the environment is going to favor the system intensifying at all as it comes northwest. We're still going to have a lot of strong winds aloft shearing apart the storm. So for Madagascar, don't worry, not going to have a big storm coming back at you again. But it is something to note that the storm may not even come through Mauritius and La Reunion anymore if it is too slow. Now, if it is a little bit faster, it could come through the island. Still, the GFS does hold that idea. It also looks like the GFS may have a little bit of a stronger ridge. You can see it sort of nosing in north of the storm right there, and that would be favoring that track through Mauritius and La Reunion. But track through the islands or not, the impacts are likely not going to change all too much because of that. Like I talked about, the wind shear is going to be pushing all the convection here into Mauritius and La Reunion, and we'll still likely have some Increased rainfall, and those thunderstorms may have some gusty winds, maybe up to tropical storm force for those islands. So it's still important that you stay tuned to Meteo France and the Mauritius Meteorological Services, just so you know what impacts are on the way, and so you have the latest information on the storm as it does come your way. This is the current forecast from Meteo France, pretty much showing what I just talked to you about, the storm regaining tropical storm intensity as it comes offshore of Madagascar, but weakening to a tropical depression as it either gets near or passes through Mauritius and La Reunion. Well, that's all that I've got for today. Stay safe in Madagascar as the storm passes through, and stay safe in Mauritius and La Reunion as the storm comes your way. I'll have further uploads this week on the storm as it progresses southeast, but that's it for now. Thanks for watching.